Writing. The day she asked a complete stranger to pretend to be her husband, she had already decided that her life was falling apart. She sat across from him in a bright little restaurant beneath warm afternoon sunlight, her hands trembling around a glass of untouched water, while outside, people hurried through the ordinary business of living. She looked as though she had been crying for hours, yet she was trying desperately to smile. Then she leaned forward and whispered the strangest request he had ever heard, "Would you pretend to be my husband?" The man stared at her, completely stunned. But before she could explain, he gave a nervous half-smile and asked, "Do I get to kiss my wife?" Neither of them knew that those two sentences would change both their lives forever. If you believe kindness can give someone a second chance when they have almost given up on themselves, take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, leave a comment, and subscribe to Heartline Stories. Sometimes the smallest act of kindness becomes the beginning of a completely different life. His name was Kellan Rhodes, a quiet 32-year-old who worked as an architect in a small downtown firm. He was the kind of man people trusted without knowing why. He had never been rich, never been particularly adventurous, and after losing his mother several years earlier, he had learned to become comfortable with an empty apartment and long evenings. That afternoon, he had stopped at the restaurant for lunch before returning to work. He was halfway through his coffee when the woman at the next table caught his attention. Her name, he would later learn, was Mireya Vale. She was dressed beautifully, but there was nothing confident about her appearance. Her fingers kept twisting a small silver ring, and every few seconds she glanced toward the entrance as if expecting someone she desperately wanted to avoid. When she finally approached him, Kellan assumed she wanted to borrow his phone or ask for directions. Instead, she explained that her family believed she was married to a successful man and that she needed someone to stand beside her at a family gathering that afternoon. Her real husband had never existed. It was a lie she had created months earlier because she was tired of being treated like the family disappointment. Her wealthy relatives constantly compared her to her cousins, mocked her modest career, and reminded her that she had failed to build the glamorous life they expected. The lie had started as a harmless excuse, but now her grandfather was seriously ill, and the entire family was gathering at his house. Her relatives believed her mysterious husband would finally appear. If she arrived alone, the truth would come out. Kellan should have walked away. Everything about the situation sounded ridiculous. Yet there was something in Mireya's eyes that made him stay. She wasn't trying to manipulate him for money. She wasn't searching for romance. She was simply terrified of being humiliated in front of the people who had spent years making her feel small. Kellan looked at her trembling hands and remembered his mother's final words to him, "Never underestimate what a person might be carrying behind a brave face." So he agreed to help her for one afternoon. The family estate was enormous, surrounded by gardens glowing beneath the golden afternoon sun. The moment they stepped through the front doors together, Mireya's shoulders tightened. Her older brother welcomed them with a suspicious smile, while two cousins immediately began whispering. Kellan understood why she had been afraid. These people didn't simply judge her. They seemed to measure everyone's worth by money, status, and appearance. When her aunt asked Kellan what company he owned, he calmly explained that he was an architect. She looked disappointed. When someone asked how much he earned, Mireya quickly changed the subject. Kellan began to realize that her pretend marriage wasn't really about having a husband. It was about having someone beside her who would make her feel less alone. Then the situation changed. Mireya's grandfather, Armand Vale, was brought into the sitting room in a wheelchair. Everyone gathered around him, but his tired eyes went straight to Kellan. He studied the young man carefully before looking at Mireya. Instead of asking about his wealth or career, he simply smiled. He told Mireya that he was glad she had finally found someone who looked at her with kindness rather than calculation. Mireya froze. Kellan noticed tears forming in her eyes. Later, while the family ate lunch in the garden, Armand quietly called Kellan aside. He revealed that he knew Mireya wasn't married. He had known for months. He also knew why she had invented the story. He confessed that he had watched his own family slowly destroy her confidence, and he regretted not protecting her sooner. Then he gave Kellan a simple warning: if he was only pretending to care about Mireya, he should leave before she believed him. Those words stayed with Kellan. On the drive home, neither of them spoke much. Finally, Mireya apologized for dragging him into her complicated life. She said she had expected him to laugh at her, but instead he had treated her with dignity. Kellan looked at her and realized that somewhere between the restaurant and the garden, the pretending had stopped feeling like pretending. Over the following weeks, they continued seeing each other. At first it was only to maintain the story for her family. Then it became coffee in the afternoon, walks through the park, and conversations that lasted until sunset. Mireya discovered that Kellan remembered small things she said. Kellan discovered that Mireya laughed loudly when she forgot to be careful. Neither admitted what was happening. Then one afternoon, everything nearly ended. Mireya's brother discovered the truth and confronted Kellan. He accused him of taking advantage of the family and threatened to expose the entire arrangement. Kellan could have walked away and protected himself. Instead, he told the truth. He admitted that their marriage had begun as an act, but he also admitted that his feelings for Mireya were real. Mireya heard every word from the hallway. For the first time in her life, someone had chosen her without asking what she could provide in return. That evening, Mireya found Kellan standing beneath the old oak tree outside her house. She was crying, but this time they were tears of relief. She told him she didn't need a pretend husband anymore. She only wanted the truth. Kellan smiled and reminded her of the question he had jokingly asked on the first day. He told her that if he was going to stop pretending, he had one very serious request: he wanted the right to kiss the woman he had fallen in love with. Mireya laughed through her tears and stepped closer. The kiss was gentle, uncertain, and real. Months later, they returned to the same restaurant where everything had begun. The afternoon sunlight poured through the windows, and Mireya looked across the table at the man who had once been a stranger. She told him that she had asked him to pretend to be her husband because she was afraid of being alone. Kellan reached across the table and took her hand, reminding her that sometimes life gives us exactly what we need disguised as something we never expected. If this story touched your heart, please like the video, share it with someone who believes in second chances, and subscribe to Heartline Stories. Your support helps these stories reach people who may need a little hope today. And before the story ends, make one special request in the comments. Write, "Kindness changes lives," if you believe that one compassionate person can become the reason someone learns to believe in love again. Mireya once asked a stranger to pretend to be her husband because she was afraid her family would discover she was alone. She never imagined that the man who agreed to pretend for one afternoon would become the person who stayed for every tomorrow. Sometimes love doesn't arrive with flowers, perfect timing, or a grand plan. Sometimes it walks into your life quietly, sits across from you in the middle of an ordinary afternoon, and asks only one thing: to be given a chance.